and welcome to Out of the Darkroom on Adorama TV. I'm Ruth Medjber and today I'm joined again by macro photographer Chris Connolly. So Chris, if you could do us the honour of telling us a little bit about all the gear that you'd use in macro photography, because I would shoot music and portraits and very kind of run-of-the-mill stuff. I've never once attempted macro because in my mind, you need a whole lot more equipment. And I'm probably right, am I?
You are right, yeah. But you can get by with little. I started out with the Canon 100mm dedicated macro lens because it's a kind of a dual purpose lens. It is an excellent, it's a one-to-one regarding the macro. But it's a good general lens as well.
Okay.
And I used that for a while. And when I started off with the macro photography, I would have used natural daylight. It's simple, it's good, but the sun comes from one direction, so you're going to be exposing for the part of the insect that the sun is shining on, which means then there's going to be another dark part. And the whole point of it with macro is to get in and see all of the details. So in the beginning, I would have used a piece of A4 paper and just, you know, fold it up into a quarter and just hold it the far side.
Like a little reflector, like a tiny little reflector.
Like everything with macros, it's the same as your typical studio, but you're bringing it down to a smaller scale.
Oh, this is so cute. Okay, cool.
So, and even when, that was simple enough and that worked all right, but when I was on holidays, obviously insects are a little bit more exotic.
Yeah.
And sunlight, as you know, can be very harsh. So then you would have to, you'd have to shade them.
Yeah. And
use your reflector. And then the problem then was your ISO would start to go up.
Yeah.
And the whole point of the whole, would say, ambition or goal of macro is to get an image as sharp and keep the ISO as low as possible. Mm-hmm. So that's how I started out. Then I would say taking the cheap way out of it, and I would have used LED flashlights.
Okay.
And you could, hand hold them maybe, and again with your reflector. Or else if you had, we say we recreated a little mini environment at home, you would have like a boom mic stand or whatever, and you'd have the little flashlight hanging down.
Like a torch, like just an LED panel, tiny LED.
Yeah, and believe it or not, it does help.
Of course, it sounds
because the
brilliant.
subject will say it's that size, and the head of the torch, the light part will be this size. So in relation, like that's if you
that's a big softbox to us. Then that's okay. I get this now. It's a lot easier for me.
And so, now that you even mentioned softbox, before I got the flashes, when I was in college, I had an Elenchrom studio set up, and I think somebody mentioned it before. They would have been taken down and set up every day, and they lasted. So that was the first thing I got. So at one stage for the cockchafer beetle, I used the softbox. Now the insect again is this size, and the softbox is this size. Yeah, it was completely ridiculous in size, but it actually worked.
If it works, it works. That's brilliant.
Yeah. After that, then I kind of realised, I'm going to have to get the proper professional equipment.
Okay.
So then I invested in the Canon Twin Lite flash.
Okay.
And when I bought that, it doesn't come with any diffusers or anything.
Right.
So I was using it. The light is very harsh. Yeah. So I got 2 diffusers, like you would get on your normal flash. That didn't really work either. Okay. So I had to make up 2 little miniature softboxes. Now again, they'd be, I'd say, probably 2 inches by 3. Okay. And they were made out of the tops of oil cans for the engine of the car, and sprayed black, and you got softbox material, and you used Velcro and made these up. Now they weren't the prettiest, but they worked really well.
Listen, if it works, it works. That's fantastic. So is that what you're currently using then, the twin-headed flash?
It is, yeah.
To me, it's really fascinating because I'd never really would have thought about it like that you're just taking a studio environment and making it teeny tiny and small.
And because this is a twin light flash, so one flash is used as the main flash, we'll say, and the other one, instead of using a reflector, because with the Canon Twin Light you can have more light from one than you can have from the other.
Oh, you can
so one is up high, and we'll say it's on a scale of 8, we'll say, and the other one is down low, and it might be on a scale of 2, or a setting of 2 power-wise. So that's acting as the reflector, so everything looks natural as it would in their natural environment.
Is that key to you, that you really wanted to look like it's natural?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely, yeah. When you pick the subject, you want to get in closer and closer and closer. So there's other little attachments you can get. There's a product called a Renox DCR 250, and it's a tiny little lens that size, and it clips onto the front of the macro lens, and it gives you 2.5 times magnification instead of 1:1.
Okay.
So then you're getting in a little bit closer, and I mean this Raynox is only about that in depth, so I mean it's not really bulking up the whole thing.
Sure.
But the thing about Macro 2 is most of the time I use live view mode.
Do you?
And manual focus.
Okay.
Because as we said before, when you're doing a portrait, the eyes have to be in focus, and likewise with the insects. So and with live view mode, you know the way you can get 5 times magnification and 10 times magnification. That's just to view the subject, so you can get right in there and you can
sharpen it.
You can focus on the eyes.
Yeah.
But the problem is with 2.8, you're letting in the most light, but it also means that the depth of focus is tiny. So you really want to be using, we'll say, f16 or f18. But if you're using f18 in live view mode, you won't see anything.
Oh,
so you have to introduce then a little LED panel up on top, so you can see the subject at f16. So what I used to do is I used to focus at f8, and then switch it to f16, even though you don't see anything, but you know it's focused.
Yeah.
So that's saved that. That's why I had to get the LED panel. The hard ones are the ones with the wings, because I mean, if he flies, he's just gone. You know, if he's a beetle, he'll run away, so you can actually catch him and put him back.
Like this would be me. I'm at f8. I'm pulling focus. I'm switching to f16, and then by the time I go and take the shot, the thing's gone.
Yeah, well, like that's often
You must
happened.
have the patience of a saint to do this.
Yeah, well, that's probably why a lot of people don't do this. Sometimes if I get an insect, I will put them into the fridge for a couple of seconds. Now, it doesn't do them any harm, right? All it does is slow down their metabolism.
Okay.
Like we said earlier on, when the lizard comes out and he's cold, he can't really move until he gets heated up. So when you put him into the fridge, it slows him down.
Amazing.
So you have your little miniature environment and all that set up first, and then you place them in, and then
then you go get your insect from the fridge. This is fantastic. I love this. This is so interesting.
Regarding magnification, this is the thing about the macro, as I was saying there, that you want to get in closer and closer and see more detail and more detail. There's a lens you can buy, the Canon MPE 65, which gives 5 times magnification.
Wow.
But it is ridiculously hard to use.
Oh. And
it's very expensive. So reverse lens technology, about extension tubes. Mm-hmm. It moves the lens away from the camera, so you get more magnification.
Okay.
And with extension tubes, you have 12mm, 25, and 36. So if you put a 25mm lens or a 25mm extension tube onto, we'll say, the Canon 100mm, that'll give you 20% more magnification. So the thing about reverse lens is you use your extension tubes and you mount the lens the wrong way around on the camera. So the lens, we'll say my specific setup would be a Canon 40mm f2.8 STM lens.
Okay.
You have to get various adapters and rings to make the connection with the camera. But when you put a lens on backwards, you're losing all communication between the lens and the camera, because the little connection points are
down
off
the
the
other
way
end.
around. Yeah. So we say this is your lens.
Yeah.
You can buy, I think it's called a Meike auto focus, MEIKE autofocus extension tube. And what it does is they're like 2 little extension tubes, but they have a cable going from one side to the other. So it
feeds the information. Yeah.
Yeah. So the combination between that little Meike autofocus extension tube, the normal, we'll say Kenko extension tubes, and this the Canon 40mm pancake lens, combination probably about €250, and it'll give you 5 times magnification.
Wow, that's a little workaround. That's brilliant. That's fantastic.
Now, obviously, you'll get a little bit of vignetting.
Yeah.
So when you're taking the photograph, you just leave a little bit of space, knowing that you're going to have to crop
into it to get rid of that. But that's a fairly decent workaround. It's a hack to do all that. One of your pictures that I really wanted to know more about was the pink grasshopper picture. Will you tell me a little bit more about that photograph and how you got it? And because I know that's the one that won an award, right? Tell us about that.
That was last year, 2015, the Sony World Photography Awards. A friend of mine bought a house down in Kilkenny, 11 acres, and there was a quarry on the 11 acres. Now, when I say quarry, you automatically think of, you know, digging into the ground. This was a quarry that was about, it was a limestone hill about 30 feet high. When they started digging into this plateau, they dug in the one way. So what you were left with then is a horseshoe shape hill that's open in the middle, and in this little middle part then it's like a little micro environment.
A world of everything in there.
Yeah, so I was down there one day and I came across this pink grasshopper. Immediately I thought it was something rare, and I rang up the Irish Wildlife and said, well, I'm after finding it, and they said, yeah, it is rare, but it's not that rare.
Oh.
I'd say regarding meadow grasshoppers, the pink coloured one accounts for about 1%. You don't generally see them because
I've never seen a pink grasshopper.
But you don't generally see them because they don't generally get to adulthood because they're pink. They stand out and they're predated upon very quickly. The colour is the pink pigments in the skin come from a thing called erythrism, and erythrism is a gene mutation. It's a kind of a gene mutation. So you have an abnormal amount of red, and, you know, be it in your hair or your skin. So, you know, people with red hair and freckles, it's a kind of form of erythrism.
Wow.
Albino, kind of a form of erythrism. So it's the whole story about it wasn't just the photograph, it was the story behind the photograph.
Fantastic. But it's a great photograph as well, and you did well capturing it in your little microorganism, your micro world down there. That's brilliant. Thanks so much for sharing that and all your stories. I think I learned a lot this episode. Thanks, Chris. Thanks a million.
Okay, thank you, Ruth.
Cheers. Well, that's all we have time for in this show. If you'd like to brush up on your own photography skills, check out the Adorama Learning Centre. And if you'd like to watch more videos, then subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thanks, and I'll see you again soon.